Travillian NEXT is hosted by the Travillian Group. Please visit www.travilliangroup.com to learn more about our specialty in the placement of board members, C-level executives, and other professionals from the crossroads of community banking and fintech.
Hello, and welcome to another fabulous episode of Travillian NEXT. I am so glad to have Casey Christopher here from Quontic Bank. She is the, get ready for this, Chief Empowerment Officer at Quontic Bank. Big advocate for women in banking, and I've seen you all over LinkedIn and Breaking Banks over the last few months. And so Casey, first off, tell me what a Chief Empowerment Officer is and how it can be beneficial for other banks, maybe.
Sure. Well, let me tell you what we think it is here at Quontic and my role and my skill set and why we developed something like this. First off, my role is to foster joy and well-being. That's kind of the umbrella of what I do. I do a lot of listening. Our workforce is about 95% remote. In May of 2020, we had been in lockdown. We're just about to get out of it, and we were really ramping up the mortgage division. And we realized that this was working. That working from home wasn't ideal by any means, but it was working. So what we did is we pivoted and we decided to allow folks that wanted to work remotely and nationwide, they could work remotely. So we made that change. Since then, we have hired 129 new employees in a total of 23 new states. So we had 3 states before, the tri-state area, and now we've had 23. So a lot of recruitment and retention efforts, do a lot of engagement, development, and learning. And we've actually been hiring out the learning and development team. And then lastly, I do a ton of communications, both internal and external. So because we don't have a water cooler to be around, or we don't have a lobby like a normal bank, we're all remote and virtual, we have to somehow disseminate the information in an engaging and interesting way. So we don't have it figured out. Let me be very clear with you.
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah, we are trial and error. And one of the things, if you know anything about Quontic, we have 4 really cool core values, and 2 of them come to mind in this situation, which is progress, not perfection. So we have a policy that if we try something on a Monday and it doesn't work by a Friday, we can kill it immediately. We can be real flexible, real agile. So we are trying new things constantly. And then we have another core value called try it on, which means just try it for a time. Just let's see. Maybe it's something we didn't think that was going to work, but we'll just give it a shot. Then I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of listening. I do a lot of surveying our employees, and then I do a lot of one-on-one coffee, Zoom meetings with them just to understand, hey, in a one-on-one situation, like if we were sitting in the break room, let me know, how's it going? How's everything going personally? How's your work environment? Are you comfortable? How's everything professionally? And it's so rewarding to have that interaction with our employees, but then to have them come back multiple times and reach out to me and say, hey, I have this idea, or I thought about this, or this would make my job easier or better. And then to actually be able to implement and execute it because of our size is incredibly rewarding for me personally.
Yeah. And you said recruitment and retention, which is what Travillian does. And shameless plug, we helped you land a SVP of accounting, and he seems to be doing very well. So just like I said, shameless plug.
This is your podcast. Let's do it.
Our same with you, moving to a more digital process. A lot of Zoom interviews, setting up Zoom for clients, following up, communication. It's changed. Before it would be a phone call, a couple phone calls, and then meeting in person. Now it's changed completely to usually a Zoom interview, and getting hired over Zoom or WebEx or whatever program you have.
Travillian does not endorse Zoom. They are
no, we don't endorse it. We like them all. We use Teams internally. We use Zoom, and we use WebEx for a few, I don't know. I lost track. But we do not endorse it. We do not own stock in Zoom. But how has that changed kind of the recruiting internally? Because for us, it's changed a lot. How have you adapted to onboarding and choosing people internally over just a video?
Yeah, it's been challenging. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's lovely to meet people in person. So you can't really feel that vibration of someone or really understand their energy on Zoom. I mean, you can to an extent, but of course, there's nothing that replaces that one-on-one interaction. So we have been very intentional about the recruiters that we hire internally. So we've got staff that works with people like yourself on the internal front, and we have folks that are very targeted towards mortgage professionals because we have an incredibly large mortgage division. And then once they're hired, our onboarding is continuing to improve, I should say. So we had a lot of onboarding in the beginning of the virtual work from home that was just out of necessity. Like, well, in New York City, we are not permitted to work with you or have you come in the office. So we have to figure out how to deliver this onboarding and this training to you virtually. So that was a little clunky. And we were able to smooth that out a little bit. But then we've been very intentional about hiring learning and development employees as well. So we just hired last week this incredibly talented gentleman from Indiana. So he doesn't actually even work close to the headquarters. That does a lot with visual and audio training. So we'll be doing a lot more in certain platforms that we can customize to make our own. So most banks use something they get off the shelf about, like, this is how a mortgage underwriter, and then they kind of supplement it with additional, maybe a binder of some sorts or PDFs. But what we're doing is being completely immersive in the learning and development piece and being intentional about who we're hiring that can deliver that, because that's the future for us. There's no going back to normal, Keith. Like, this is it for us, that we've got to understand how best to deliver training and development so our folks can flourish and thrive.
No, there's BC before COVID and PC, I guess, post-COVID. There is really, but that's a great hire actually for audio and visual. And I've seen that digital marketing, everything is and we're seeing that shift too to more digital talent and getting talented people who can, do something over a computer that maybe you didn't need before.
And I think, if there are community banks listening to this podcast, if I could give one message, is that pivoting towards virtual and digital anything is much less intimidating and cumbersome than you think it is going into it. I mean, there really is so much talent available in terms of team member, employee success, but also resources available too. I mean, the surge to transformation in the past 12 months, I mean, think about it, we've been sitting in this for 12 months now. How much has grown and shaped and changed, and here and there, like, I mean, we're on a Zoom meeting right now, and I've done, I guess thousands maybe of Zooms in the last 12 months, and yet did a couple FaceTimes and a Zoom here or there before. So, and think about how easy and old hat it is to be on this Zoom right now, and how unintimidating that is. So I think if you can just kind of think of it like that, and digital account opening, and there's so many resources and providers now that can offer you services to safely do that as a community bank. I think embracing that surge to transformation would be ideal for your institution.
I agree completely. And that's a whole other podcast we could have that we could spin off and go down that rabbit hole for an hour and a half. But what you said before, it's been almost a year of this.
Inching very close, Keith.
I know, and everybody's trying to think back to last year around this time, and then who would have known the following 12 months? But I've been reading a lot lately about fatigue, pandemic fatigue, mental health. Oh my God, keeping yourself focused. Stuck in an apartment, especially in New York, where you are.
I feel like you're giving me anxiety.
But we are coming. Like we said before we started recording, we're coming to the end of this. At least the worst part is over, and I feel that we're moving in the right direction, especially the spring coming. But how, from a internal chief empowerment officer point of view, have you kept people on that mission? Spread across the country, checking in on them, checking in on their mental and physical health. That must have been, part of your job over the last year or two.
Yeah, and I don't foresee that changing moving forward. I mean, when Patrick and Steve approached me in September of 2020, I'd already been at the bank for about 6 months or so, in a different role, in kind of a more traditional banking role. My background is in correspondent banking, and I was in the high-end specialty banking. And they said, we really see a need to be more intentional and impactful with our employees through engagement and empowerment. And a lot of the stuff that I had been organically doing, kind of with our HR department and some of our other departments, was able to showcase, I guess, my talents in that area, which I never really knew I had, or kind of they were always on the back burner. So when they came to me and said, this is something we're making a priority here at Quontic, and we need someone to lead that charge, that's kind of where the role began. So I think that I don't think this role would have ever been conceived of in 2019. Mm-hmm. It was really born out of a very specific need that came out of the pandemic, and that I don't think is going to change in the near future. Mm-hmm. And we are being very there's a lot we're trying, a lot of stuff that we're trying on trial and error to see to best engage our employees and to make sure that they're taking the time they need for themselves, both personally and professionally. And that we're giving them the resources to do so too. So I do, like I mentioned, a lot of one-on-ones. All of our new employees I meet, and then I do an additional one-on-one with them after that. We do 7, 30, and 90-day surveys where we follow up and they're not anonymous. So we ask them to really truly provide their feedback on how we can change things. And we take that information and we do something with it too.
Yeah. A lot of places just take the information and you never hear from it.
Yeah, you're like, oh, great, that's how you go. No, we comb. There's a team of us that comb through these surveys. And then we're doing things like we have monthly all-company meetings, about 60 minutes. A lot of people have all-hands meetings. That's what we have. Well, this year, we decided to implement some sort of guest speaker. And the first one we did, I wanted it to be a gift to our employees that didn't have to do with their professional existence. I wanted it to be something that they could take an exercise away and talk about it at the dinner table with their family. So we had a career coach come in and talk about basically what exercises on what do you kind of want to leave in 2020? What do you want to not bring forward to 2021? But what do you see as an opportunity personally in 2021? And then also, what do you want to bring back from 2019 that you had to strip away at some point, which for me was in person, going to the gym in person. I wasn't comfortable in 2020 doing that, but I was in 2019 bringing that forward. So we were able to go, it was about a 15-minute exercise. There was a lot more than that, but it didn't have to do with work. And I wanted folks to feel like I personally believe and leadership believes that, you have to be good at home first. So we want to make sure that everybody's mental health, everybody's home life is a great foundation, and they're bringing their best selves to work. So kind of little things like that. We're having another speaker come in our March meeting. We offer things like yoga on Fridays. We have a wine and cheese pairing event that I'm super excited for tonight. And that's not out of the ordinary. Like I'm not saying anything that other institutions might be doing. We have a cool trivia contest. We have Quontic trivia that we're doing before the meetings. And then I believe, to combat pandemic fatigue, you cannot over communicate. Communicate. And being transparent, being communicative creates safety and creates a safe environment to work in. When you're not physically there and you're not physically seeing your teammates around you, always having access to information and being provided transparent information, I think, is part of the foundation as well.
No, great insights. And you're right. A lot of companies that maybe didn't look at mental health or some of these collaborative ways of why it's so important for a business going forward, every company in America was forced in the past year to look at that. And it's become apparent that it's so important to productivity, to happiness retention, like you said. The worst thing is losing a person that you've had for a couple of years because maybe they didn't feel comfortable there. And you want to head that off in the beginning and make them feel like part of the team. So Casey, changing subjects kind of completely. We both love cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. I love this subject. I just finished a book, Bitcoin Billionaires, about Bitcoin standard. I actually have it right here. Look.
Nerd alert! For everyone listening, we're both holding up a copy of the Bitcoin standard.
Because I feel like the author, I don't want to mispronounce his name, should pay us for the plug there.
Seriously.
But it's all over the news, and NYDIG and Quontic were in the news back in late 2020. About the first Bitcoin rewards card for a regulated institution. And that really blew the doors off of everybody that I saw on LinkedIn and Twitter were talking about Quontic and NYDIG. So it's exciting for you. What have you seen since the launch, and kind of what's next for Bitcoin and Quontic?
Yes, we've seen success and interest, so we're super excited. When I first met Steve and Patrick, one of the things that we talked about was cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and I had been a very timid early adopter through. I have like a super much cooler than me millennial little brother that was like, you got to get into this, and I was like, okay. So I was an early adopter of that, and then we started talking about it, and Steve really was passionate about how there can be and should be a symbiotic ecosystem, a relationship between cryptocurrency and community banking or banking in general. And frankly, absolutely nothing existed. So that really piqued my interest early on, and even working at Quontic, like, wow, listen to these guys that are speaking a language I speak, and they're really seem to want to not just talk about it, but actually create pathways to change too, not just say, let's do this. So super interested in Bitcoin. We rolled out the first Bitcoin rewards checking account in the United States. And that rolled out December 15th, 2020. So the premise of that account is similar to any other rewards debit card purchase. Maybe you get airline miles or something like that every time you swipe your Quontic Bitcoin rewards debit card. For eligible purposes, you get 1.5% back in Bitcoin. And we mentioned NYDIG earlier, their integration, and they're an incredible partner. We absolutely love working with them. They're the custodian for the crypto. So they're actually, Quontic Bank never holds any cryptocurrency on their balance sheet. We we basically take the information and we push the information to NYDIG, and then they purchase the Bitcoin on behalf of our customers.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic to have a partner like that, and it seems to be a big success. Got there first.
We did.
First to market. You're going to get a lot of people because it's perfect timing. With all the interest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain. I'm just blowing up everywhere. Every day I read a new article about something, new product.
I recently did a LinkedIn blog about my interest in women in crypto too. So I think that I had an opportunity to basically have a Zoom call with a bunch of female professional friends and demystify Bitcoin, and really kind of talking back to my comment about how digital transformation and virtual pieces is not intimidating, and the bank can move that way. So I feel the same way about women in cryptocurrency too.
And I think the word is going to get out on Bitcoin. It's gone from more underground in the beginning to more mainstream. And once you read about it, Bitcoin Standard, Bitcoin Billionaires, it does demystify it. That's a good word. It's not some magic trick. It's basically math. It's math.
Well, and women control 85% of consumer spending and over 7 trillion of investable assets. So this is a conversation we should be having. Yeah.
And there's so much information. I would suggest following you, NYDIG, Patrick Sells. I know he just put a new video on LinkedIn today.
Yes.
About what NYDIG actually does, and they're behind the scenes. Quontic has the relationship with the customer.
Absolutely.
And that's essential, and that's community banking. I mean, community banking is in the community.
Right.
It has the face-to-face with the
we
customer.
open the account. The account opening process is the same as if you'd open a non-Bitcoin checking account. It's all digital. It's all online. All the identity verification is done online. Basically, it's just a type of account, and that type of account triggers a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes at Quontic that communicates with NYDIG. Yeah,
and it's perfect. And you have the relationship, and it's for the bank. I think it's just another way to retain your customers and give them another product, especially maybe the younger generation coming up that is all digital and never has gone into a branch or a Blockbuster.
We were interested to see what our initial customer demographics would be, because we kind of had a bet, was it going to be existing crypto enthusiasts that saw this, were comfortable with crypto, moving over, or was it going to be folks that I recently heard the term crypto curious, that were going to be like, oh, this is a good way for me to get an introduction to crypto. But so far, 83% of our Bitcoin rewards checking account holders own crypto on another form.
Okay.
So it's very much crypto enthusiasts.
Yeah, it's going to take a little time to get the word out, but that's where I think what NYDIG is trying to do, with what Patrick is talking about, building behind the scenes so community banks can provide these solutions.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people would be more open to Bitcoin if it was a reward instead of investing, your own money right away.
Yes, and
kind of dip your toe in before
that's
you jump
the
in.
demystifying too, is saying you are not taking any. I mean, I'm not a investment advisor, so don't.
No, not at all.
I gotta put that caveat, but you're not taking any of your existing capital and buying crypto with it. You're being rewarded based on the purchases that you're making. So what's better way than just trying it by getting us to essentially purchase crypto for you on your behalf? So
I mean, besides airline points or dollar bills.
Because I haven't used an airline point in 12
I know.
months, right?
I used to have airline points, and it would say you have to leave on a Wednesday morning at like 6 a.m. and have like 2 layovers, and it was never a direct flight.
Just going to Florida. God.
It was never a direct flight. It was like 2 layovers, and I was like, oh my God. So I never used them, and I lost them. It's like use it or lose it.
Well, and
so I would love a reward that can go up in value. To me, that's incredible.
And you bring up a good point about what NYDIG's doing behind the scenes too, because I used to work at Center State Bank, and our chief strategy officer, Chris Nichols, who's a brilliant man, we talk about branch network, and he would be like, everyone would say, oh, well, everyone loves the branches. And he said, well, what alternative do we give them to the branches? Right? So for me, it's that with crypto and what NYDIG is doing stuff, if we don't begin to follow suit of what people want and give them, like people say, we'll have to edit that piece, but folks say, as a community banker, my community, my customers don't want anything to do with crypto. Well, how do you know that? Have you offered them something with crypto? I mean, if you've never asked them or offered them, how do you know? Well, they don't come in and ask for it. Well, I mean, I don't go to Starbucks and ask for a pizza either, you know?
Well, I bet the same people at Blockbuster had that conversation back in the early 2000s. They love our stores. So that's always what I try to caution. You have to be looking 3 or 5 years ahead. And customers don't know what they want right now. It's about providing as many solutions to their current issues, but also where the trend. And the trend is
a lot of these digital implementations you can do are a fairly not costly lift and not a heavy lift. Like there's so much that's happening now with AI, with automation, APIs,
fintech
automation,
partnerships, open banking. It doesn't take, because I always say that you're not going to compete with Bank of America on technology investment. You have to partner with the right partners. They're doing the innovative, customer-facing, analytical, really interesting stuff.
But did they come out with the first Bitcoin reward?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Boom!
And you wouldn't know, but a lot of these fintechs that are out there that you've heard of, Acorns, Betterment, they're partnering with smaller community banks. Yeah.
Listen, early on, Stephen Patrick said there's no reason that we can't behave like a fintech. We can do in-house development. We can partner with because other fintechs partner with other fintechs. And why are we seeing ourselves in such a narrow space when we could be so much more than that? And that was frankly what attracted me to Quontic, the really broad yet inclusive view they had.
Yeah. Why discount any idea right now? I mean, there's just so many different directions, financial technologies going in, and banks that saying, oh, my customers aren't asking for it, or, that's not the future. I wouldn't discount anything right now. I'd be looking at as many possible solutions as possible.
If there's anything we learned in 2020 is we have no idea what the future holds.
Nope. And I like to just think back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and how much has changed. And the pace of technology advancement is so quicker now. It took a while to get from the record player to the cassette tape to the CD, but now it's digital to streaming. It happened overnight. Like nobody downloads music anymore.
Yes, the surge to transformation. Went from 0 to 120 miles per hour.
It doesn't, it's so quick. I mean, what used to take decades now takes months. And there's
just so exciting.
I study this industry, and there's a lot of great firms bubbling up.
Yeah.
So there's innovators out there. But thank you, Casey. Really appreciate your time filling us in on what's happening with Quontic and your own journey as Chief Empowerment Officer.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always great to chat with you.
Anytime. And hopefully we will touch base again when people are back in the office, or maybe not back in the office, and we can talk about what's happening in community banking at that time. But,
dare we do a podcast in person? Is that
oh my God. I'm dying to come up to New York. It's been a long time. I'm waiting to get up there. I need some good Italian food.
Yes. The recording studio door is always open to you.
Yes, I am going to hit Little Italy every night I'm up there. I miss Little Italy. But thank you so much, Casey. Have a wonderful day, and we'll touch base soon.